clearly?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah,
we are getting you.
Yeah, though I'm now using my phone, I would have wanted to log in using my laptop, and there was a problem in, I don't know, it requires some to be checked. There seems to be something that is not working. So this is SLDP number 472.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and today we are supposed to have a number of presentations. One is that we are supposed to have a presentation on organizational culture, and then we are also supposed to discuss matters to do with reading change. And at least I know you've logged in, and you've been able to see the presentations that we have in our platform. I think we were supposed also to put up some discussion questions. Unfortunately, I think that one is also something that we omitted, but I believe that we can still proceed and see whether that can be done later, if it will be possible. Do we have the column to start with? Now I'm not able to get that from the I can't see it from my end. So, class president, do you have the column?
I am seeing that we are 32 of us. I
Yes.
think we should be more than that, but
Like
in
how
the
many?
interest of time, we
Yes.
should be more than 50.
Should be more
We
than
should
50.
be, yeah, almost 60, almost towards 60 thereabouts. But in the interest of time,
Yes.
I don't know whether we can wait further. I think let us begin and they join in, but I've tried to put it in the group.
They can join us later.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that would be the best, so that because I will start off and I will take about 45 minutes, so that then later my colleague Mr. Okoyo will join you later to discuss matters to do with learning and knowledge management. I think those are broadly the 4 areas that are under discussion. So I will start off by us thinking through as leaders, because this is a leadership program, and therefore whatever concept we are discussing must be looked in from the point of leadership. And it is all about leadership. SLDP is all about being strategic and being strategic leaders. And therefore, in the view of our organizational culture, then we must also view it from the point of leadership. And the 2 areas that I'm talking about, in one way or the other, are connected, because when you are reading change, you must also be aware of the intrigues that are likely to be there because of the culture that is there within your organization. And when you talk about culture, because the key word here is culture, organization is that once we have an organization, within that organization, then we also create a sub-culture, which we are calling organizational culture. That every organization has its own culture. So that when you talk of that organization, you must also look at it from the point of the culture that has grown. So when we are talking about culture, what then are we talking about here? When you look at various definitions of culture, you see a number of words that connote that definition of culture. You know, somebody says culture is cumulative deposit of knowledge. So knowledge. So even when you talk about knowledge that have been developed over time, you still look at it as a form of culture. Yeah, experience. Yeah, what people have gone through in the past, and what is it that they learned from it, that becomes also part of their culture. And that's why we are talking of organizational culture, because within that organization, there are certain things that have been there, or there's certain knowledge, there's certain experience that have been acquired over a given period of time. And that's why every organization is unique in its own way, because of the experiences and the knowledge that have been acquired over a given period of time. You will also see other aspects that can also be seen to be forms of culture. Beliefs, values, attitudes, meanings, hierarchies, religion, notions of time, and many other. All of them connote some aspect of culture. The concept of the universe, material objects and possessions acquired by a group of people in the course of generations. So when you talk about culture, culture is so broad that it is not something that you can just say that you can express it by use of one word. It is so broad, but with it then you see some forms of behaviors that have been developed over a given period of time because of the influence of the culture, the influence of the people, the interaction of the people. So culture in its broadest sense is cultivated behavior. Yeah. So that you see people saying, people of this organization behave in this manner. What that person is saying is that there is a tendency toward a certain form of culture in that organization. So it is the totality of a person's learned, accumulated experience, which is socially transmitted, or more briefly, behavior through social learning. So a culture is a way of life of a group of people. What people behave or how people behave. Sometimes will come in form of beliefs, will come in form of values. What is it that people value? Even as a country now, you can see we are trying to develop a culture that is national culture, so that we have, as a country, we have certain beliefs, certain values that are common to all of us. Because you are all aware, as a country, because of our different social backgrounds, which is as a result of sometimes coming from different tribal backgrounds, different regions, different economic and economic activities. So you find that as a country, one of the biggest challenges that we have been having is the issue of whether, as a country, we can say that we have some common values, that there are things that people believe in, people look forward to, values. And now, if you look at our constitution, at Article 10, we talk about national values. We are trying to cultivate certain things that are good to all of us, behavior that are good to all of us, national values. When you go to Article 232, that is chapter 13 of our Constitution, you also talk about values, public service values, that in the public service, there's something that you would want to develop as a culture. The culture of being transparent, the culture of being honest, the culture of being professional. You can see, so that then when you talk of people who are working in the public service, then you can simply say that these people are guided by these values. So when you look at culture then, because culture, like I've said, has many layers of attribute. At the center of it is what people consider to be values to them. Very close to what they think should guide their actions, should guide their thinking, should guide every action. Values. And values are not visible, ladies and gentlemen. It is not something that you can see. If I came to your ministry or department, wherever you work, I cannot see values by just looking at the people there. It will take time for me to know what is it that people considered as very important values to them. It takes time. It will require me to have a lot of interaction, to learn, and to hear people talking about specific issues, so that then I can learn about their values. But then, in terms of what may be visible, you will find that people within your organization have several practices. They do practice. There are things that they practice. And through those things, then you can be able to tell what is it that they value. Some of those practices will come in form of ratios. Ratios. Ratios are like things that are celebrated. Yeah. If you go to an organization, I don't know whether within this team we have people from the Ministry of Health. You may find that depending on the department they are in, if it is like the department that deals with matters HIV, you may find that they usually celebrate HIV Day, and that becomes a ratio. During that celebration, then there are certain things, there are certain information that are communicated, so that that department know what is it that should be of importance to them as they deal with that problem. So you will see ratios, people celebrating certain things. You will also see people having heroes. The people they celebrate could be because these people were critical when such organization or such department was being set up. And there are certain things, there are certain values that people want to learn from them. Then they become their heroes. And these heroes are also celebrated. In some organizations, you also find there are certain types of symbols. Symbols could be like certain things, artifacts. They could be certain types of colors. They could be just something that people associate themselves with. Even certain types of colors or designs of, design of their wares or anything that is visible. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to understand the culture of an organization, sometimes it may not be very easy, even for us as leaders, and especially if you are going to a new organization, to know what people value. But as you go through some of their ratios, go through discussing what they value in terms of their heroes or the symbols, then you can be able to learn some of the organizational culture that are there. One of the things that as leaders which we may be interested in understanding, because culture is very important. Even when you are developing strategies, you need to understand the organizational culture. If you want to introduce reforms within your organization, you need to understand the culture that is there. So what influences our culture? Could it be then the question that we are asking is, what factors influences our behavior as people within the organization? And you will see a number of things. First is our culture, or what you can call cultural factors. This includes people's culture, the subculture, and even the social class. So that if, like now, you look at a country like Kenya, depending on where your organization is, you will find that it is being influenced by certain cultural practices. That is the way people interact, the way people socialize, and the behaviors that they possess as a culture. So that then, from that, then you are able to probably understand some of the behaviors that you will find in that organization, cultural. And I'm sure you know, even in a country like Kenya, sometimes there are certain behaviors that are associated with certain cultural background, culture, where you have grown up, where you are brought up, the school you went, yeah, isn't it? Huh? Can I get from a member to tell me what kind of culture is associated with people from the coastal region in Kenya? Hello?
Hello.
Yes?
I can say the Swahili, the language itself.
The Swahili, the language, isn't it? So that you can be able just to tell that somebody comes from the coast by the way he speaks. And that then is the influence of culture in that area. So that it has influenced even the way you speak, the way you talk. Something else from coast? A positive one. I don't want you to talk about a negative one.
Good afternoon. The kind of food that they prepare.
The kind of food they prepare. What kind of food is common there?
Pilau.
Pilau. Now tell me, when you are looking at an organization, what are some of the characters that you may find in an organization that has an influence of the, could be if you are leading an organization that is in coast, what is it that you may be dealing with? What are some of the, what could be some of the issues that you'll have to deal with that are as a sort of their cultural background?
They also tend to be laid back and not very active, proactive, so to say.
Yes, could it be because of the influence of weather, isn't it? The weather there is a bit hot. Imagine somebody in coast vis-a-vis somebody from the mountain. People in the mountain are generally very, they tend to be a bit more
Active.
Active, or I don't know whether the word active would be the best. Could be I could use the word, they are a bit
aggressive,
more what?
Maybe
Aggressive.
aggressive.
Yes. Aggressive. Yes, aggressive. Because the weather there allows them to be very active anyway. The people, of course, you remember the place is very warm, so they tend not to be very aggressive. And that is them. So that if, for instance, you are introducing reforms in an organization that is probably in cost, don't expect people to be very quick to adopt, because they are used to that tendency of doing things gradually, slowly, not really very, very fast. And that is them. And that is something that we must be aware about, and it has a lot of influence in the way you deal with the people there. Culture. What about people from the REC region? Something positive about them that may have been as a result of their cultural influence? Somebody from there can tell us, because, or somebody from who is not from there but has been there.
They tend to be sharp.
Very brilliant, isn't it? They tend to be very knowledgeable. They tend to like reading a lot, getting a lot of knowledge. If you, I hear that if the rich region has the highest number of people with PhD.
Or recommendations are not sufficient to enhance adoption. To what we realize, because there are so many and they are there, but which means their presence or their absence really doesn't mean that they will enhance the adoption. Number two is that when designing solutions, it's good to base on the problems of the person that you are trying to solve the problem.
Excuse me, Mukora, please mute.
Now, yeah, somebody is in another meeting.
Excuse, Mukora.
You involve public and private actors at the local level, and then integrate private actors' business models into biosecurity.
Yeah, I've muted him. It's okay, we can go.
Mukora. No, Mukora is in another meeting. You see now the problem with this online learning. He is in another meeting and he has not muted. Anyway, so at least you all understand what we mean by culture. The other one is social factors. And social factors here include groups, reference groups, aspirational groups, family roles and status, and all that. And this explains the outside influence of others in our decision, either directly or indirectly. As in, who are the people? You see, organizations also tend to have certain or they tend to have certain orientations towards certain social factors. Like for instance, let me talk about, you may go to a certain organization and then you find that the majority of the members in that organization are relatively young people. And therefore, you need to understand that the reference group is a group that or their behaviors will be more influenced by relatively young people. So their way of thinking, yeah, like you'll find that in that organization, people are very good on matters like technology, understanding matters to do with how the world is moving, because they are relatively young people. You may go to another organization and you find that the organization have people who are relatively a bit aged. And for that reason, you'll find that they tend to be a bit more reserved, a bit conservative in the way they deal with their issues. And that is the team that you'll be working with. So you must understand their behavior, which is, of course, influenced by their social factors. The others, of course, are personal factors. Of course, the combination of personal factors and the influence to the organization. Variables such as age, occupation, economic circumstances, lifestyle, and many, many other, which of course tend to influence the way we behave as individuals. And the collection of us as individuals is what then you'll be talking about when you talk about the organizational culture. There are also other forms of influence, which also influences our organizational culture, of things like the psychological factors. And psychological factors, when you talk of psychology, then you ask yourself, like for instance, the questions of what influence people? Yeah, what is the motivation? What is it that our people are motivated towards? Remember, people get energy to do certain things because of certain motivations. Just like we know when you look at the Maslow hierarchy of needs, we understand why people probably work very hard to satisfy certain needs based on their level of where they are as far as the needs are concerned. So we have psychological influence, which influence us. Issues of things like perceptions. How do we perceive things? Coincidentally, this is also influenced by our interaction. Our interactions like education. Are we science-based or are we in the social science field? Are we in the science? How do we perceive issues? And this has also a lot to do with our personalities. Yeah, are we extrovertic? Are we introvertic as people? So the connection of all those behaviors is what also bring about things like beliefs, and also attitude. Attitude here, a belief is a conviction that you have on something through experience. Yeah, where you are brought up, the family, the friends you have interacted with. Attitude, the feeling, an assessment you have on a particular object or idea, you know. And we say that attitudes are very, very important because it influences our thinking so greatly that if you have a negative attitude toward something, it is very difficult for you to change your way of thinking, as long as that is the attitude you have towards that concept or that object. So all these, ladies and gentlemen, have a lot in terms of the way we lead our organizations. And that's why we say the organizational culture has a big impact on how we implement certain things like change, when we want to do reform, or when you want to introduce a new strategy, when you want to introduce a new policy. How will the people within that organization take it? Are they going to have to be positive about it? Are they going to be to have a negative attitude towards it? So that all that understanding of the organization, culture and behavior becomes very, very critical. And it is for that reason that even when you talk about reading and managing change, the central theme again is also culture, because culture makes us to have certain comfort. And because of that comfort, when you want to introduce change within the organization, then somehow you are threatening that comfort. And that is why sometimes you will find that you have a lot of problems in terms of influencing the people towards the change that you are talking about. Could be, let us briefly look at change and see how as readers, matters of reading and managing as leaders, when you talk of the skills that we should have, the skills that we should possess as leaders, one of the skills that is very critical is that of being able to lead and to manage change. Of course, we look at it from the point of leadership. And when we talk of leadership, then we say, and I know somebody, when somebody was introducing you to leadership, and he gave you clear differences between leaders and managers. And he must have also mentioned that managers tend to be a bit conservative. Not that managers don't like change, but the nature of managing organizations requires some level of stability. For instance, if you want to introduce or if you are introducing a policy in an organization, the managers would want to ensure that that policy is implemented as provided for in that particular policy, so that anything that you try to change, then the management may not be looking at it positively. And that is why we talk about when you talk of leaders, we say that leaders are change agents. They are more pro-change, while managers tend to be a bit conservative. Leaders are more future-oriented. They look at the future of the organization. They look at the issues that are likely to affect the organization many years from today, so that as they talk about the things they want to implement in the organization, they are already looking ahead and seeing what are the likely changes to happen. So that then when you talk of change, we are looking at change from the point of positioning our organization in a level where you can be able to deal with future challenges. And leaders tend to be more future-oriented. Managers tend to be more current-oriented. They are looking at currently what is happening in the organization. So leading change is more of a leadership concept. And leaders are people who do not fear change, but look at change as a positive thing. I know when you talk of change again, you'll be looking at various concepts of change, and as leaders, you'll be subjected to various concepts of change. When you introduce reform in the organization, it will be seen from the point of change, which is planned in nature. Reforms are planned change, reforms. But remember, you can also be dealing with changes that are not planned. And then we'll be talking of revolutions. Because revolution is a change that is not planned. It just comes. And you have seen, like, even in some countries where people just wake up one day and decide to overthrow the government through revolution. So as leaders in that particular situations, you are dealing with a change that sometimes may be very difficult to manage because it is not controlled in any way. So there are many forms of, when you talk of the concept of change, you'll be talking about many concepts. Like you'll be talking about developmental change, change that concentrates on improving already successive environment. So it's a bit gradual and is planned stage by stage. Transitional change, when you are moving from one system to another system. Transactional change that is very cosmetic. You just want to change bit by bit. We also talk about transformational change. This is a change that is very fundamental and substantial, like changing the whole system, changing the whole organizational structure. So there are many types of change when you're talking about change. And as leaders, one of the issues that we should be thinking about, which is also very, very important, is what is it that may be driving change within our organization, so that every time we think about our organization, we understand that we should not wait for change to happen, but even to introduce change, because there are issues that whether we like or we don't like, we'll have to change. For instance, issues of customers. The customers are changing. If you're in an organization today which is providing goods and services, you must be aware that customers' tastes will always be changing. And therefore, you cannot continue giving the same services thinking that the customers will still prefer what you are offering them. Change will be as a result of many things. Technology is changing. Yeah. It's sometimes when you look at a country like, or let's say where we are as a world, see how technology has changed. 20 years from today, or before 20 years ago, we did not have mobile phones. And today, it's like we've never, you can't even imagine that we used to stay without those mobile phones. A child born 3, 4, or 5 years ago will be very difficult for him to conceptualize the world today without mobile phone. So technology keeps changing. The globalization, so that things that are happening in Europe in the next few years will be happening here in Kenya. People are moving from one point to another. Trade, business interactions, trade, and many other things, political phases, and many things, economic situations, socio-cultural dynamics, the demographic, the way population is increasing, and how it is influencing the way people behave. Yeah, I always tell people, if you go back and you look at a country like Kenya, in Kenya in the first census was done in Kenya in 1969, and Kenya's population was less than 10 million people. Today, 60 years down the line, we are having people almost going to 50 million people. So the people are changing. The population is increasing. Social behaviors, the modernization. 30 or 40 years ago, almost 90 or 90-something% of the people are living in the rural area. As we move to as we go towards more of a middle-level developed countries, towards a more industrialized country, people will be staying more in the urban area. So the way people are interacting with one another, all this will mean that we have to change. And that change, if you are leading an organization, you must be a conversant. You must not even conversant. You must be aware that you must change the way the organization is dealing with issues, government regulations and regulations. Look at how the government organization have changed since 2010 because of the new constitution, new registrations, new organizations have been created, new rules, new policies. All this means that as a leader, you have to keep changing. You have to lead your people towards new ways of doing things. I think I will allow you to probably look at the various models of change, but I would be in particular interest to Peter Kottas, who have given us a clear way through which you can be able to manage and lead change within an organization. Because sometimes, as leaders, we actually don't even know how to lead change. And therefore, sometimes you find that because you have to change anyway, and because the organization is changing, the leaders are struggling to even keep up with the change that is happening. But Kottas says that there's a way that you can manage change as a leader and be able to manage it very, very well. Of course, what Kottas is saying is that first and foremost, you must in the change process, you must prepare your people as the first stage by demonstrating to them that the need for change is there, that they must accept that things can never be the same. So he talks about establishing, as the first step, establishing the sense of urgency, or it's like putting fire to the people so that then they are already aware that whether they like it or not, change is coming, and therefore they must be ready for it. He then says, in the change process, the second step is that you must form a coalition as a leader. because there is where you want to take your people, the goal that you have set, the reforms that you want to introduce in your organization. So you must have a team. You may not be able to carry everybody with you, but have a few people who believe in you or whom you have a common way of looking at those issues. And therefore, it is easy for them to move with you in the change journey. It says the land stage in the change process is that you must create a new vision so that people see it, see the difference from where they were going before and where you are taking them. So there is a new vision. And for you to be able to lead change effectively, then you must communicate that new vision. And therefore, communication becomes very critical. Because sometimes we are telling people we are reforming, we are changing, but they don't know where you are taking them. How clear are you in your communication? How clear are you in your communication? Then in the third one, he says, for you to effectively lead change, you must empower those people. Empowering then means you must equip them with the necessary knowledge, with the necessary abilities, with the necessary skills that will enable them in the change process. So you empower them. I always get surprised, like for instance, I don't know whether you have people from the Ministry of Education. You see, we have been having reforms, especially in education, when you talk about competence-based curriculum, the CBC. And when I'm talking to people from the Ministry of Education, sometimes I get surprised when they tell me that they also themselves don't really understand the CBC system of education. You see, when you hear something like that, you get worried because these are supposed to be the champion of the CBC reform in education. So when you wonder whether these people have really been empowered to transform our education system from the previous system to the current one that we are aspiring. So what you are saying is that these people must be empowered. They must have the necessary skills. Then he says, step 6, you must plan and reward short-term wins. Sometimes people in the change process, people get sometimes the change is not easy. The process of changing is not easy. So sometimes people will give up. They will get frustrated. They may not see like there is an end in the whole process. So Kota says you need to plan and reward. For whatever achievement that has been there, reward those people. Reward them. So that then they can see, yes, they are moving towards where you are taking them. And then he says, any change that you have been able to, or any change that you have been able to acquire, you must consolidate it. You must consolidate that improvement. So it is you change, make sure that what you have already been able to acquire is incorporated into the system, and then before you move to the next step. Because sometimes when you are changing, you lose track of what you have changed. And then the people you are leading go back because you are changing people. Remember, when you are changing people, you're also changing their way of thinking. And that's why we started by organizational culture. You are changing their attitude. You are changing their behavior. So sometimes they go back to the older way of doing things. So you need to consolidate. You need to ensure that even what you have already been able to achieve has actually been mainstreamed into the system. Then you need to reinforce To reinforce change means that whatever you have been able to acquire, you must have a system of not only rewarding, but also ensuring that you have put a system that ensures that what have been achieved has what it requires to support that change. Reinforcing change, supporting the change process. Because whatever you have changed may require certain structures. If those structures are not there, then you go back. Just like we are even saying, the skills that have been acquired, you keep adding more and more skills so that people can still be able to maintain and sustain that change. That is what Kota says that are very, very important. They're reinforcing the change, demonstrating the relationship between the new behaviors and the organizational success or the supporting system. It is not going to be easy, ladies and gentlemen, to read change. Definitely, you will have a lot of challenge in terms of dealing with resistance, because definitely there will be resistance to change, which you have to deal with. And we talk about the many things that make people sometimes not prefer change, which leads to resistance. People don't like being introduced to things that are very new to them. People are more comfortable to the structures and system they are used. People don't like surprises. People would prefer to be aware of how the tomorrow shall be. Sometimes people fear change because of the fear of loss. Could be somebody is in a certain position. Change may mean that that position doesn't exist, and therefore they may lose certain powers or certain privileges. And for that, you will find yourself dealing with the challenge of convincing them that despite these changes, things will still be okay for them. So you still have to really deal with all those challenges that are there, and as leaders, we must be aware about them. Could be let us shortly see what Kota say about what are the most important elements that you must put in place to ensure that you have a successive change. He says, for you to ensure successive change, then there must be various elements. And he outlines about 5 elements. And these elements, he says, one is that there must be a vision or objective. What is it that, where are you taking the people? Yeah, the vision, which must be very clear to them, so that even as you tell them that we are changing, they know where you are taking them. He also says, Kotas also says that you must have competent people to manage that change. I think I've explained that when I was talking about the CBC system of education. He also says that people must be motivated towards the change. And it is us as leaders to motivate people towards accepting change and being in a position to take that change positively. Depending on how you have structured, depending on how you have communicated your change, and many other factors, either people will be motivated or will not be motivated. Kotas also says that there must be resources. Because change or reforms requires material resources. Because you are introducing new things. Introducing new things may mean putting up new buildings, new machines, employing new people. Yes, all these, you require to have those resources. Then he also says you need to have a clear action plan. The action plan says we are going to move from point A to B to C to D. That plan must be very clear from the beginning to the end. But he says, in most cases, leaders are not able to put all these things in place. And in that case, then you find that instead of real change, you find yourself dealing with certain problems. He says, for instance, if you, as a leader, you don't have a clear vision or an objective, instead of having a change, a good change or good reform, if you want to call it that way, then you are going to have confusion. So when you see people getting confused during reforms or certain changes within the organization, in most cases it's because they don't understand. They don't have a clear picture of where you are taking them. And for that, they are also confused. So as a leader, it is for you to make sure that the vision that you have for the people is very clear and everybody can see it and understand it. He also says that if you don't have competent people, he says, instead of having change, what you have is agony. Agony because people will be struggling. They don't know how to deal with these issues. I've seen even in government today, quite in some department, and I still go back to the Ministry of Education's competence-based learning curriculum. And again, you find that sometimes the people who are supposed to manage that change may not be well sensitized. They may not have been taken to seminars where it is made clear to them, and therefore they don't have what it takes to manage that change, and therefore there will be a lot of agony. He also says that if you don't have motivated people to add change, then what you are likely to have is a slow change. The change may be there, but it may take a lot of time because there is no energy. He also says if you don't have resources and you want to change, as a leader, you'll be faced with something we call frustrations. People will be frustrated because, yes, they may have taken the change process positively. They may have even seen where you want to take them, and it was clear to them, but now they don't have resources, and therefore they get frustrated. And lastly, he also says, what if you have all the other ingredients, but you don't have a clear action plan? He says that what will happen is that you'll have a false start. A false start because the very first step you take in the change process will be determined by the action plan that you have. So if you don't have a clear action plan, then chances are you are likely to have a false start. So those are some of the things that are probably I would have wanted to communicate. Kindly, I would also refer you to William Bridges. William Bridges and talks about the change process, and he has given what he call the change process, and he says that the biggest challenge in the change process is the transition, because he identifies three changes or three stages of change. He says the first stage is the edge change or the edge process, where you must learn to do away with your previous way of doing things. the previous behaviors, the previous activities, the previous beliefs, and many other things that you are doing. So the first stage, he says, is the ed process. And he says that first stage is faced with a lot of challenges, including the denial. When people are going through a change process, the first thing they do is to deny that yes, there is change. They are faced with the problem of anxiety, confusion, and many things that happen. But he says that may not be even the biggest problem. When you look at the William Bridges transition curve, and I think it is somewhere in your presentations, you see that there is the dip, which he calls the neutral zone. And in that neutral zone, which is the transition, you see there is a lot of psychological problems that are there, including things like anger, fear, frustrations, and many other, which is the initial psychological challenges that people face. And as they start slowly embracing the change, they will still be having a lot of stress. It will take time to realize loss. They will be a bit skeptical and all that. So the whole of that dip, which is one going down and then start coming up through that transition, the neutral zone, they say that is according to William Bridges, that is the biggest challenge in the change process. And towards the end, he says, you'll be dealing with what he calls the last stage in the change process, which is the beginning, and which we, of course, will be have very positive psychological influences. People will become a bit relieved. There will be a bit of excitement. People will start accepting the situations. They start even trusting that, yes, it is possible and all that. And that is towards the end. So according to him, most of the challenges that you'll be facing will be in between, and that is during the transition. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to end my presentation there, but I would could be, I don't know whether Mr. Okoyo is already with us. Mr. Okoyo, are we with us?
Yes, I'm on board.
Yeah, Bwana Okoyo is already in, but I don't know whether we can have one or two comments before I invite Mr. Okoyo to take over and take us through the issues of learning and knowledge management. Anybody with a question or a comment? Yes, I can see one person. Is it John who has raised up his hand, or?
Hello?
It's Godfrey. Yes, Godfrey.
Yes, I would like to thank you for the presentation. It was a good presentation. I would like to ask one question.
Yes, Godfrey.
Considering our country's values about corruption and all that, how do you deal with that? Because how do we change that if you are in charge of an organization where the main issue is corruption? How would you change that? It's like a culture, sort of. So how do you approach it?
Thank you, Godfrey. I think a very good question. And I think that is why when I started this presentation, I started by probably allowing us to understand that we are introducing or leading change within organizations that have embedded certain types of culture. And therefore, to start with, is first and foremost for us as leaders to understand that that is the culture that we have. that we are operating within that environment. And the next thing is for us to understand if there's going to be any meaningful change within our organization, or what we are calling leading change, we must start by trying to change the culture that is already there. Of course, on matters to do with issues of corruption and other negative traits and characters, of course, we all know and understand that our biggest challenge is that sometimes when you want to introduce and lead people from those kind of behaviors, sometimes we assume that we are going to start it from the bottom, which sometimes is very, very difficult. For me, Godfrey, and I have always said this, if we want to change our organization, we must start from the top. So if you are the leader there, it is you to change, first of all, the culture of those people. And for you to do it, you must, first of all, yourself be what you are introducing to those people. Why sometimes we find it so difficult is because sometimes we are also not what we want to others to be. And therefore, it becomes very, very difficult to introduce change, because the easiest way of introducing change is through allowing people to see, to see how, through observation. People learn more through observation, not by not what they are being told. So if you want to introduce change in your organization, be what you want to introduce there. What we call turning at the top. It is our leaders to change first. Once our leaders change, then we introduce change gradually down there. What I have seen in many leaders who have been able to change their organization is that they come and they completely, of course, gradually, not of course abruptly, but gradually introduce a holistic change, so that you change the people's behaviors through changing their way of thinking, changing their way, what they believe in. And it is not very easy. It will take some time. So I've seen even people trying to introduce new management with people whom they know have the values and the characters and the traits that they want to introduce in this organization. Sometimes the public service is not so easy, because even changing people sometimes is also not very easy, because already these people are there. They are in certain positions because those positions have been given to them. And you may find that they have certain behaviors that probably do not support the kind of change you are trying to introduce. So in the public service is a bit difficult because it means slowly by slowly you introduce a new culture, a new way of doing things, even before you can reform other things like the structure, the organizational structure, and other things. So you start by changing the people way of behavior, their values. What is their value? Who are their heroes? What are the ratios that are celebrated? And many, many things, so that then people start seeing the best way to go about it. And then, like I have said, and Godfrey, you look at it this later, I have talked about Kota's change process. Kota gives a clear way of how you can seriously introduce change in the organization. Where, first of all, he talked about the first step is creating an agency. So this agency is introducing fire. You want to tell people we are not going to condone the culture of corruption. So you introduce fire, so that you want the people. If by any chance you are found to have been having this, these are the repercussions. That is introducing fire. He talks about building a coalition of people who are willing. So it is introducing people, having a group of people with behaviors, common behaviors. People who believe that corruption is bad. And those becomes now the people who will lead the rest. And then, so you look at those stages, the 8 stages under Peter Cotter's process of change, and you see what he proposes to be the way that you can introduce serious change in an organization where probably you have all those kind of behaviors that probably are not preferable. I don't know whether Godfrey have answered your question. Could be it will request you a little bit of more engagement through the content that we have. Ladies and gentlemen, because I'm seeing we are on, we've almost taken like about 1 hour, 15 minutes. Allow me to introduce my colleague, Bwana Okoyo, because I also know that he has aligned some very, very important presentations to you to take over. Bwana Okoyo?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tuko. Good afternoon, participants.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think for the sake of time, if you allow me, we engage, then we'll have plenary towards the end. I'll give some time for reflection and some time for contextualizing, because this program is about experiential learning, sharing experiences at corporate level. Okay. It's very, very important today. And when I talk today, I'm talking the era of systems and strategic thinking. That if you're coming in as a director, or coming in, when I say director, I mean level 2, and coming in at CEO level 1, and coming in as chair of a board, or a member of a board as a director representing interests, I know you should create an organization that has 2 loops of learning, a learning organization and organizational learning, but not functionally thinking like learning in HR. No, we need you to create organization that is creating new knowledge. And why is this so important? I think if I'm to judge and evaluate a board and check whether a board is performing, especially board, then the CEO and level 2s, the directors, your performance will be a factor too. Did you redefine strategy? And I'm picking my words clearly, redefine strategy. Because in most cases, that is your biggest role. And if at all, because strategic thinking is revolutionary, it changes paradigm. I would be very keen on, did you create an organization that came up with new ideas that redefined strategy? And today, any value propositioning or any strategic intent is older than 2 years, is not unique and better, and is not solving needs in unique ways. The people you're serving today, calling interest, and this you can take to the bank. Your stakeholders want their problems solved in unique and better ways. And I don't think, you should not compete on the same paradigm. You should co-create. Just leave the paradigm that is old. And so long as that paradigm is strategy is that I'm talking 500 days, because that is the lifespan of knowledge today. Any knowledge that is going to lead to unique and better arrangement, or any knowledge that is going to give you competitive advantage, must current knowledge. And current in what way? Current in the sense that you've listened to the stakeholder have told you of their unique needs, found a way of mainstreaming the unique needs, strategic intent, to and any value proposition is coming through that kind of arrangement, and problems, because simply that means somebody has a unique and better thinking at strategy level, which is not you. And that person who has a better thinking will make you irrelevant because he has a better way. And competitiveness today is not about what you have. It's about how stakeholder thinks you should solve their problems. And stakeholders, they know what they need today, and they know how they want it. But one sure thing I know is they are now having unique needs. I just want you to personalize, customize, tailor-make around these needs in the strategy. And organization that is so open-ended and allowed to pick ideas and pick ideas and make them into strategy as DSS, decision support system. And this decision support system is reaching strategy level, then that organization will be highly competitive. And such an organization, you cannot make them irrelevant. So you need 2 loops of learning. And these loops of learning must be institutionalized at strategy level. Because if they are not envisioned from the board, then it will not be easy. Number one, every organization creates knowledge. That is a learning organization. And a learning organization, the way they do things, they create knowledge. But one thing now that is going to be very important is how close is your system to stakeholders? I mean, an open-ended organization. And now, how you do things, you do internal learning. Now, the people you work with, the operational levels, the technical operational levels, and professional levels, are they captured? Are they captured and shared? Shared to a point where they become. And if this flow is working well, where they are allowed to think and create knowledge at functional level, at operational level, and then the functional and operational level knowledge creation will lead to new SOPs, and the new SOPs will give feedback to strategy. Then that will be a learning organization. And then what is also very, very dangerous is failure to understand external impacts and what they mean to internal impacts and what they mean to industry and what they mean to stakeholders. And this external learning about external impacts, whatever that means, must be institutional, must be picked, institutionalized, and brought into strategy, so that the new value propositioning you're going to create is made up of 2 loops of learning, a learning organization and organizational learning. And in most cases, how top management envisions will determine whether an organization will learn or not. Look at key things you do. Boards and level 2. When I talk level 2, I'm talking directorates and directors, not managers now, not level 3, 4. At this level, you validate strategies. You mainstream strategic intent, you guide it, you lead it. And if you want a learning organization, then you will enable it through how you do organizational structuring. When I see a flatter organizational structure, what does that mean? You are decentralizing decision-making and you're decentralizing authority where it's needed. That leads to productivity. That leads to faster ways of doing things. That leads to faster decision-making. That leads to faster learning. That leads to faster picking up of knowledge and creating competitiveness. So show me, when I see in your core values, and one of your core values, philosophically, you have appreciated the fact that you should be a learning and changing organization, or organization that is pro-excellence, then I want to see it in the structure. Validate the structure to demonstrate that. If you come up with a structure which is flatter, look at what you're doing. You're also making communication faster, decision faster, reaction faster. That's a proactive organization. But that's also organization which is pragmatic in response, which means it can pick information and act on information as fast as possible. So I think we don't have any business now coming up with highly functional organizations with a taller structure. The taller structure, the anti-learning and the anti-change. And then in such a kind of a culture, again, you are not encouraging. First, in a decentralized structure, you are encouraging teams. You're encouraging team working and team response. Please, that is very, very important again. So if I see in your in your strategic plan, you've validated a strategic plan where core values is team working, ever learning, ever changing, pro excellence, then you should allow work organized, not as individuals doing tasks, but as teams working on multi-dimensional approaches, and where team learning and team reaction is fast because it's structurally organized to be faster. If now you come up with an individual doing a function in an office setup where it's not reacting with others, then you're killing. Adults learn best in teams. Culture that is pro teams and structure that is pro teams will create faster learning. And people learn from people they trust. And adults learn when they think whatever knowledge they want to experiment with is relevant, and they see what is going to do to their strategy and their work performance. So what am I trying to say? As a director, you're the validator of strategy. You're the validator of strategic intents. As managers are drafting frameworks, frameworks are as a result of integrated learning, and in the two loops, organizational learning and a learning organization. If at all, when you sit down to validate strategic plan, ask yourself, were the stakeholders' views picked on board well? Did they do the external impacts well? And internal processes, were they done well? But above most, the strategic plan should lead to a new framework and a new paradigm. Did they create a new paradigm? So that at the end of the day, when you're validating a new strategic plan, did it redefine strategic intent? Did it give you a new strategic intent? Then in such a case, you know you did well with the organizational learning. So what I was trying to capture again is in the structure, if you don't encourage individuals and you don't move individuals to work in teams, and you don't move teams to work in processes, then again, organization is not going to benefit so much, because these individuals will just be efficient individuals doing things in a fixed paradigm. That was relevant in classical thinking in the scientific era, 1920s. That was not even relevant in human relations era. Because in human relations era, we did a lot of research went on, you know, the whole and all that, and human relations arrangements. We did work psychology, work sociology. Then we realized human beings are safe to learn from people they trust. And they're safe to learn and experiment when you're not intimidating. And then another thing, the more the controls. We want to control less. Why? We want people to be experimenting. And you should not be so quick on so-called letters. If at all you'd allow people to experiment, and this I tell younger people, because Kenyan workforce is now young, how I wish younger people could be allowed to make big, faster mistakes, make them so fast, so that we get a lot of learning. And when we get a lot of learning, then we come up with pragmatic, relevant solutions. And then now I'm even skeptical when I think job descriptions, because and standardized processes, standardized procedures, all this now will be a lot more chaotic with learning, because in classical thinking, remember we separated the learner from the doer. Now we want the doer to inform the learning, so that the planner is informed by what the doer is saying, because the doer actual person work. Again, if you have an informed, qualified doer, he can create knowledge. He will pick what is relevant. And if you are a advisor and a manager, then these things which the doer is telling you is about the reality. Civil service now wants a pragmatic, responsive problem solver on the ground. And that pragmatic, responsive problem solver is because they are contextualizing what is on the ground, so that and tailor make and personalize where necessary, so that the citizen can feel like they are being given value worth their money. And now again, challenge comes with civil service, because we borrowed is heavily a bureaucracy, a lot of red tape. And civil service, we are mandating a lot, we are standardizing a lot, and because of that, we don't have a lot of room for learning. And then again, we came up with a good idea: managing by agreement. Managing by agreement means negotiating all targets, and mutual trust, and from an emotional intelligent supervisor and a worker, then we could get targets. Smart targets is a factor to learning a lot. Then to come up with pragmatic local solutions, which is highly customized. Then in such a case, organization becomes unique and better. Then the customer benefits a lot. So the frame performance again, we will encourage learning. If command, and then the planner is not talking to the doer, and the targets are not realistically negotiated to pragmatic relevant situations, then in such a case, I don't think learning makes sense, because it will just not make sense. And then another thing is the culture. What kind of organizational culture you have? And this, I want to say with a lot of authority that in most organizations, I borrow from Draka, breakfast, so that after breakfast by around 10, organized management is running organizations without strategy, because strategy will succumb to culture. And then in you'll hear culture act. When you're trying to be strategic and making people learn, they'll tell you tumeona wengi, utachoka, na after some time utakuwa umechoka. So it's also making a lot of sense that if in your strategic plan, you validate which is ever learning, ever changing, then pro excellence, then pro initiative, and pro customer care, being customer centric, then you have to create knowledge towards it. And to create that knowledge, you need a culture that will allow people to learn and change. I think in most civil service organizations, I've had a chance to do a few culture audits, and my culture audits are telling me one thing consistently. We have a culture where learning and creating knowledge is very tricky, because most of our culture is not pro excellence. Actually, what I see is the snoggerealing I get when I'm doing culture change. When you try people, when you try being innovative, and you try being excellent, I think you'll be profiled so fast, and the snoggerealing will be clear. They'll be telling you when sana, then you'll be transferred where you can only be seen but not heard, because you're holding opinion. And all these are also factor to other things. For anybody who is going to be innovative and creative must be highly motivated to be bold enough to be confident enough to be authentic enough to question paradigms and create the next. Simply what I'm saying is, one of the skill sets which now is generally should be needed so that we create learning, we need highly emotionally intelligent workers who will be initiative taking and will be purpose driven and will not be working towards narrow selfish interests, so that they can come up with unique ways which can be challenging but will be relevant. And then again, learning goes with grit. That motivation to do challenging things because you have a purpose. So if the purpose is weak and you have purposeless people, then they won't have the grit. That person's sacrifice to become much better will not be there. And then especially, again, when you're in a work culture where you're permanent and pensionable, so I'm talking reward now. What are you rewarding? When a reward system and reward policy frameworks are geared towards identify differential performance and rewarding differential performance and value addition, then you'll have a culture that is pro-excellence. But when you're permanent and pensionable and you're rewarding loyalty and entitlement, then I don't have to have differential reason. I don't have to have any grit or any high-level motivation to question things and create the next. And then if in the organizational culture and reward system, the top directorate and the top corporate level is not encouraging pro-excellence, which happens a lot in such cases, then you'll realize that what is important is entitlement and loyalty. And when entitlement and loyalty is what is rewarded in promotions and in every other thing, then culture of learning goes away. And nobody will want to take a risk. I mean, if I'll earn whether I've taken any risk or not, then why should I take any risk and learn? So changing and learning is risky, but there must be a motive why I should take that risk. And I think if I'm permanent and pensionable and there's not any arrangement where I'm excited or given a reason to risk, then I won't risk. So that also is very, very important, that you come up with an organizational reward system that reinforces the desired culture. So we need a culture of excellence. We need a culture of pro-changing and pro-excellence. And then again, this culture must also encourage adaptability. And not just that, they should also be rewarded. And then if you are rewarding, if you are managing with short-term interests, then you see, nobody will take time to invest in the right thing that will lead to tomorrow's best arrangement. Simply, I'm talking principle of P and PC. If you want a product, you must have production capacity. The production capacity is building competency and knowledge. And that, if you're not managing with a balanced scorecard, then I think we are not going to go far. Because a balanced scorecard will give you a chance to do lead and lag. You will have to do some learning today that will create excellence tomorrow. When you see excellence tomorrow, there was a lot of capacity building and learning today. And that brings me to the lower phase, the foundation of the balanced scorecard. That if you don't have human capital and you don't have organizational capital, which is organizational culture and leadership, then there's no learning. And because there's no learning, you will not be customer-centric, because there will be no reason to be customer-centric, and you will not have the grit to sacrifice and become much better, because that is not going to be in the performance matrix. It will not going to be in the targets, and it will not be measured. It will not be institutionalized. It will not be rewarded. And in such cases, organizations, people will just come and become efficient and tick boxes and do the normal things, but they would rather not set stretch targets. For me to stretch a stretch target where I challenge myself to create the next paradigm, there must be a purpose. There must be a high-level motive. So I encourage that we do strategic plans with balanced scorecard and also manage with a balanced scorecard. And in such cases, learning will be institutionalized, because there's no way you'll have operational excellence without human capital and right organizational capital. And organizational capital, I'm talking organizational culture and a leadership style supporting human capital. Otherwise, you'll just have permanent pensionable human liabilities who will be very comfortable earning salaries as they wait to retire. So in such cases, learning will not be there. So for you to create a learning organization and organizational learning, please, as a strategist at corporate level, redefine strategy, move to another paradigm, and let that paradigm be informed by excellence, and then reward excellence. Then create a culture where that can be captured and institutionalized. And in such a case, I think learning will be perfect, because communication will be better, decisions will be faster, stakeholder views will be picked up and mainstreamed into strategies so fast. Good. Now, what do you people think? Any reaction? Oh, there's no reaction. So I can say that the learning is done. Okay, maybe let me ask, what are the challenges you're going to get when you'll be trying to create a learning organization in public service as a strategist, not as a functional manager? Somebody wants to say something? Any challenges you'll be facing? Or what are some of the things we can do to make civil service? Because there was that survey that was done in 2002, and Kenyans said something. They said that civil servants are not customer-centric. And they said we are not proactive. So what are these things we can do to make our organizations customer-centric? Okay, then in such a case, let me just recap so that we can take it home. Number one, I'm starting where I started. Your clients or stakeholders, they want you to pick unique needs from them. And then they want you to create a value propositioning that is offering unique and better solutions. In most cases, they want it faster, they want it convenient, they want it cost effective. I still underscore that in your learning processes, also do artificial intelligence. Sometimes it might force you to do a business process re-engineering if you are not making sense at all. But how will I gauge a performing board is because they've created a new value propositioning. It's redefinition of value propositioning. In other words, strategic intent. Number two, create organizational structure that will allow learning. Number three, create organizational culture that is pro-excellence, that is pro-teams, that is pro-change, and that is pro-learning, and that is pro-risk-taking. Thirdly, reward risk-taking and encourage value additions and reward differential performance. Fourthly, create organization where people are emotionally intelligent enough to be having a motive to be initiative taking and proactive and purpose driven to a point where they can be pro-excellence to create excellence. And lastly, let's tone down on high-level regulation and mandating a lot and standardizing a lot. The future of work, which again Kenyans know, will not be favored by a highly standardized, highly mandated arrangement. And that I know will be a challenge because sometimes our learning is capped, both external learning and internal learning is capped by our mandates, which maybe need review. So maybe it's time we did legal instrument, we did cabinet papers, so that these things can be taken to the cabinet, so that legal instrument can be reviewed, because even the economy now needs review in how we look at it strategically. And in such a case, we will have a highly performing economy. So, Bwana President, is the President on board?
Yes, I am, Mr. Okoyo.
You're Jacqueline?
Yes, I'm Jacqueline Kisuku.
Yeah. So Jacqueline, I think I'm done unless there's an issue, a query that, and I encourage that you interact with the material on the wall. Yeah. So in such a case, if you allow me, I can log out.
Okay, before you log out, I don't know, as you were speaking, Coletta Omondi had raised her hand up for some time. I don't know whether there is any, she put it down, but maybe she can share whatever she wanted to.
I didn't see that. Coletta, go ahead.
Thank you. I was just going to react to the issue you raised about the public service.
Yes,
and,
go ahead.
The organizations. You see, sometimes the public service, you may be working in an institution, like I work in an institution, where you are not directly the one that is the employer. So you don't directly deal with the rewards and sanctions. Somebody else deals with them. So you may want to put in place quite a bit of strategy that are very good, but you give the internal motivation up to where you can. People would look at motivation in terms of maybe their promotion, people seeing what they do and so on, which as an internal organization, you may not be able to do. And this may now compromise the productivity or commitment of the team.
Thank you for that reward. And this is what I want to say, Coletta. Much earlier, you had been moved. We had presented a shift where you move from thinking like a manager to thinking like a leader. And in all organizations, I don't know when you said that you are not directly the employer. Were you talking Public Service Commission or something? Okay, whichever way.
We are employees of the public service. So in a leadership position, from where I sit, there are people who are very positive and they will see the need to move. And actually, we have some bit of teamwork that is very cohesive. But then you may also have individuals who look at the bigger picture of sanctions and rewards, which the employer, who is the public service, holds, and not you in the institution where they work.
Okay, this is what I want to say. Give feedback to the regulator, because they are regulating at policy level in such a case, at framework level. And Public Service Commission wants as a mandate of making public service productive so that we can grow the economy. And we cannot be productive when we are not rewarding pro-excellence and pro-learning. One strong measure that should highly be rewarded is whether civil servants are creating value or not. And then I also have to say, Kenyan civil service is full of knowledge and full of skill. But if you're not careful, it will be knowledge for knowledge's sake, not turn to utility till they retire. And in such a case, we are just rewarding having knowledge. That's not right now. Now we should reward how we can move knowledge to utility. So when giving feedback in the tool you're using, I know you're using PASS, then there's a part for comments. Better we give comments so that we can reward the right things. Then in such a case, you know what? In this era, you will be responsible for managing your performance, but also managing your learning and competency development. And you know what? If you are in a good organization, you will be so inspired to even outgrow your job. And you'll find people investing in skills which are not even on their JD. And that's why, again, I'm anti-using JD, because JD is very narrow. You know, sometimes you realize that you need to grow yourself. And if you know you will be rewarded in whichever way, then you see, you will be pro-learning, you'll be protecting initiative. So in such a case, because the regulator will have a window to give feedback in performance, because even public service is managing by performance by agreement, and you'll be given that part for capacity building, then please let it be used well. And in such a case, when it's managed well, then differential performance, if initiative to do differential performance, you have a tool to capture and reward, then there'll be a lot of learning, even learning above JD, because now people do more job profiling in private sector than job because JD can be limiting, and then you end up not going out to acquire more knowledge and not going out to grow yourself. But the modern Kenyans now are young, they're under 35. Look at the under 35 people. These people will not go for linear career. They'll not go for linear career at all. And you'll find them growing themselves in other areas. So that is what we should encourage. Then we have a total person who can grow themselves well. I don't know whether Jack
Thank you. I appreciate.
You appreciate. Jack, what do you have to say?
I wanted to speak in the same context because in many organizations,
yes,
especially at that leadership level, and at even board level, there may be very good, number one, platform that you have developed for development in terms of learning, and also reward and sanction for failure to meet the expectation. However, like previously, we used to have in many boards a 13th check, so that if a person has delivered, they're given that recognition on the 13th check. If they have failed to deliver before they are sanctioned, they are given an improvement plan, most of which would involve identifying areas of weaknesses, identifying areas of training that they would then undertake in order to improve their performance. And that then would help the organization develop. Unfortunately, the challenge that we have been facing is with respect to financial limitations. With the budget cuts, most of the organization now can't undertake these. Of course, then there are many more bureaucratic bottlenecks that have been placed. For example, any decision must now get direct sanction of the ministry. It must go up to the hopes and all that, and therefore it creates an environment where there are limits to the extent to which even at the top, at the leadership level in these organizations and institutions, one can implement these learning ideals that you have been talking about. Thank you.
True. I accept. And remember me saying that we are over-mandating, we are over-controlling to a point where even initiatives to learn. And now again, I want to encourage people that the future workplace now needs totally different skill sets. Most civil servants, mastery of knowledge is in place. If you are to do skills audit, which I also get time to do skills audit, I see, we are not lacking in concepts. Mastery of knowledge, basic degrees are there. In fact, most people have master's degree. Then proficiency standards are met. So we have people who know what to do, know how to do. But the skill sets we need now will be different now. Because now we want these people who know what to do, know how to do, how to get them do. And there now you see, now there, we need more of things like emotional intelligence. We need more of things like adaptability, initiative, of things like resilience, better communication, which again can be fixed through emotional intelligence. And now I even encourage now, if HR people are doing TNS, let us not spend more money on basic knowledge, because we have a very rich pool of people with knowledge and with proficiency. So if now the little money we have, can we use it to move knowledge from knowledge sake to utility so that the economy can grow? And Jack, I agree with you that we came up with so many regulatory arrangements. We are even now not empowering the boards, because I'm preparing you for board level. I'm not talking as functional people managing knowledge proficiency. I'm not talking coaching, I'm not talking mentoring and things like that now. I'm talking direction now. Direction to enable knowledge, so that we can create an organization which when they create knowledge, it can be captured, shared to strategy level. And organization that is also pro-learning to external impacts. So going forward, let us think now like leaders, not thinking managerially, operationally now. The performance I'm talking here, it's not operational performance now. It's performance in terms of direction. And that's why I'm saying, if I was to gauge you in that, then my biggest measure will be, did you redefine strategy to lead to unique and better arrangements? And did you redefine strategy to a point where you stopped competing and you started co-creating? You moved from from red oceans to blue oceans. And if you did that, then you succeeded as a strategist, because you're not supposed to compete anymore. There are so many needs that we need to co-create. And the problem is, do we have co-creators? And a co-creator, once they have the basic knowledge and proficiency, they should be given this other general skill sets that will enable them to be co-creators. And so that they can be vulnerable enough to listen, capture, share, and understand what matters. Yeah. And also be confident enough to be authentic, and authentic enough to question paradigms to create the next. So I agree, Jack. I wish we could go low, because you see, like the way Coletta was saying, we have Public Service Commission regulating. We have SCAC regulating. We have SRC regulating. All this, you see, SRC is determining which skill competency will be rewarded. SCAC will be mainstreaming, but sometimes, unless they contextualize so much to specific organizational levels, then it could be a stumbling block to co-creation and learning. So sometimes when you over-regulate, you can also kill that room to learn and create knowledge. That's what I can say. Oh, I think I've done a lot of learning. Oh, and I also want you to capture this. Jacqueline. Jacqueline is the president.
Yes.
Okay.
I've seen Nelson's hand up.
Who? Nelson.
Nelson Waswa had put his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know. I'm not seeing on my screen. Nelson, let's not leave out anybody, because this is about experiential learning. Let's share experiences that you have been going through as managers. Nelson, what's your view?
No, I don't know. You had asked a question about what is it that is supposed to be done for an organization to be customer-centric or something like that. Huh?
Yes.
So
when you're
I don't know.
Customer-centric, when you're customer-centric,
yeah,
you will pick stakeholder views, then create knowledge of utility. So go ahead, Nelson.
Okay. Now, what I was just thinking, if at all we are able to embed the customer-centric into the core values of the organization, and make a customer-centric a fundamental value for our organization. So I was thinking that this commitment can be evident in the mission statement, even in internal communication and employing that are onboarding. That actually clearly indicates that the customer is a focus and core value in influencing the decision-making and behavior at all levels. So I was thinking that that one can be very paramount in being customer-centric. And at the same time, also maybe aligning the organizational structure around the customer, and also reorganizing your company's maybe structure to prioritize customer needs. These I was thinking as if it can revolve around integrating the sales, the marketing, and other ICT work so that they can work cohesively towards unifying customer experience and adopting agility methodologies that can actually also facilitate the transformative. And also, maybe finally, I was looking at the culture of also continuous learning and thinking. So I don't know if I'm really on course, because today I was really struggling to get the jargons around. Yeah.
Which jargon? Nelson. Yeah. Nelson, you have just hit it on the head. This is what I've been trying to say. Just give us agile strategies and then organize around customer need. Let customer be at the center when you're doing your organizational structure and organizational culture. Then reward customer customer-centric behaviors. Excellent. That's what I was saying. If we can be an organization organized, organizational structure, organize it around customer need. That's why I was saying, make it flatter so that it's proactive, it's lean and efficient, so that it also picks what the customer wants, and then act so fast. So whatever lesson you're going to learn around that is what should be captured, shared into strategies, into policy frameworks, into SOPs, and into all policy frameworks. And with an agile organization, you can't go wrong. Yes. And now my worry is, that's also what Kenyan said in 2002. They wanted to be customer-centric. But now we normally say we are customer-centric just to tick a box. Then you'll come up with 1 week of customer care. Please, if as mainstream, when you're mainstreaming customer care, then make your employees your first line of customer. If you want me to empathize with your customer need, then empathize with me. And when now you do internal customer satisfaction survey and external customer satisfaction survey and do them objectively, then mainstream it through a balanced scorecard. Then you will create, you will institutionalize it. But you see, we just say, oh, there'll be 1 week of customer care. Then now we make people wear uniform and sometimes do banners and then they smile for 1 week. But when I'm smiling, when I'm not happy, your body can see. I mean, psychologically, they are what we call the E factors: effort, energy, and enthusiasm. When you have somebody who is psychologically happy and you have somebody faking happiness, even when they smile, they look like a scarecrow. So it will be a week of scaring people. But when you have people who are psychologically having the E factors, and because they are happy because of how they are being treated. So you see what I'm saying? Have policies of treating me well, then I'll treat your customer well, whether you are there or not. Because as a matter of strategy, I'm your first line customer, then I'll treat the other customer well. Then you can manage by end result. And then again, how you are organizing work, I keep saying this. Most strategies, for you to deliver to the customer, you'll realize that it's multi-dimensional before you reach outcomes and impacts. So you'll be having a lot of efficiencies and outputs, but these ones must be integrated to outcomes and impacts and organized intentionally. And all the learning at the end, you should do a template around it, debrief and do a template around the process. So organize work as a process, which is multi-role, requiring multi-skills and learning across functional areas. Not work as an individual doing a function. Work as an individual, part of a multi-dimensional team, working on a work process that makes sense. Then we move to outcomes and impacts. Then we can now have clear deliverables that will make sense to the customer. And then learn across the process. And then the future of work also, it's not a highly specialized person. We want generalists because work is going to be a process. So just give us generalists with necessary skill sets. And those skill sets are going to be very varied today. And that is the learning you should spend your money on. So Nelson, that was great. That is a lesson I've been struggling to put across. Thank you. Thank you. So when you see you are validating strategies, check. Are they agile? Are they leading to co-creation, not competition? And please, this book can help you so much. Because of this challenge, I've done a book called Reimagining Excellence in a Disruptive Economy. The book is going with the title 1 + 1 is 4. Now, I've developed cases and frameworks of reimagining excellence in a disruptive third world economy, and I'm using Kenya heavily so that you relate these things to reality. And this book, you can pick it from Nuria, you can pick it from the school. If you come to Nairobi, go to Embu. The book is there. You can pick it from Naivasha if you're in Sewela, if you're If you're in the resort, Naivasa Resort, the books are there. But let's contextualize and let's get realistic with how we are managing. I know it will be challenging, but it's good to reimagine it. Yeah, and see what we can do with it. So, Jacqueline, now, unless there's another, I don't know why I'm not seeing, from my end, I'm not seeing people's hands up. I hope we are not locking out any view.
No, there are no hands up at the moment.
Oh, great.
Yeah, but on behalf of the group, I really want to thank you, Mr. Okoyo, and also Mr. Thuku, for really taking your time to expound on these things. Sometimes when you read, they just sound abstract and everything, but the way you've gone about it, I believe today learning has taken place, and we really appreciate. Thank you.
You're welcome. May God bless.
So for the rest of us, I think, thank you very much for plugging into the class. And I believe this is, according to our calendar, this is like the last, our last live session. But I'm seeing in the calendar there, it reads that during this week, there are supposed to be group presentations. So I am going to liaise with the school then on how we are going to move from here, given that next week we are supposed to have our one-on-one. Then I shall communicate in the group. So I don't know from your side whether there are any challenges or whether there are any issues. I think there was the discussion and they acknowledged it. So I hope they are going to share it. Sharon?
Just finding out from the assignment that were given the workstation assignment, there seems to be an expectation to deliver physical copies.
There
Is that
is?
the case? And there's an expectation to deliver physical copies.
Uh-huh.
So has anyone done it, and who are we submitting to?
Okay, maybe I'll need to clarify that. Let me talk to the side of the school, then I communicate in the forum.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay. If we don't, if they any other issues, so that we don't. Yes, Nelson.
Chair, what I was requesting, if we can be able to find the exact dates when we'll be there on the physical interaction for planning and even maybe organizing how we can get time off from our workplace. I think it will be great, Chair.
Now, let me. That one, I think it was already shared. I hope you already had you downloaded the timetable, because according to the timetable, it is next week and it runs for the whole week. That is from Monday, the 9th to the 13th. But I shall still get back to them just to confirm on the same and share in the forum.
Okay.
Okay. So I believe, colleagues, if there is no other issue, then we can call it a day. So thank you very much for plugging in, and let us continue engaging on the forum. I wish you a great evening and also a good week ahead as we finalize this journey and as we look forward to meeting physically next week. Have a great evening. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Good evening.
Good evening.